This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset, going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening?
You just did 250,000 cold calls. Congratulations.
Oh, I just love that intro. I just love the intro. Hey, I'm here with Darleen Priday, and I'm so excited to have you here today, Darleen. Thank you so much for coming on the Pipe Podcast. And I'm your host, Cris. We talk about, sales process, sales initiatives, sales prospecting, and sales experiences. So really excited to kind of dig into this with you, Darleen, and just understand like the world that you came from and how you got to where you are, with your organization. And if you don't mind, I just love to jump right into it and just give the listeners and viewers a little background on you and what part of the world you run and some of the things that you do, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Crispin. It's an honor.
That's so kind of you. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your background and some of the successes that you've had and some of the things about your organization as well.
Yeah. So currently I live a little bit north of Orlando, Florida. I have been in sales. I say 25 years. It's really more like 30 something years. Like
no one's counting.
I started in retail. I've done retail. I've done B2C, B2B, and everywhere in between. So my whole career has been focused, some sales aspect, regardless of what my position was through that journey of 30 years.
Sure. And let's talk a little bit about that journey. Like, did you start in corporate America? I mean, how did that, give us a little bit of the roots of how that happened?
Yeah, so I have a fashion degree. I went to school for fashion merchandising, and I actually started my career as in retail when I was 16 years old, and I fell in love with selling, not necessarily all the aspects of selling, but the energy that you got from the clients and making them happy. Yeah. And then after college, I was an accessory buyer, and then I moved into product development and marketing and all of the things. One of the things that makes it unique is that regardless of what my position was, I was always pulled in to do the bigger sales. So if we had big clients, we had some key clients, we had a VP of sales, I'd still be brought in for the product, but I'd wind up selling because I was able to build that rapport and trust really quickly with the people that I was selling to. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where it started as far as developing those sales skills. And then then I went into logistics, then I went into virtual staffing. Right. So regardless of what, it was always in that sales position.
That's amazing. Now you're getting me excited, because when you talk about opening up opportunities, with potential prospects, and you talk about that bonding and rapport and connecting, at a high level with your prospect right from the beginning, having a high level of engagement. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like what are some of the tools that you use, or what are some of the things that you do, that you can really focus on, opening up those relationships?
Yeah, what's funny is I have always operated like this, and I didn't really define it. I didn't think it was a sales process or some kind of sales gimmick or anything like that. I was just always being authentic. So it wasn't until probably the past couple of years that I really began to identify what I was doing that may have looked different than other people. I call it empathetic sales. So
Mhm,
I always try to connect with the person that's buying, put myself in their shoes, and really try to get what's best for them. That's going
mhm,
to make them successful with the solution, the product, or whatever it is that I am selling.
mhm,
Um, and building that trust as first and foremost my goal in that sales call.
mhm. Isn't that so? I mean, the stuff that you're talking about this morning, it's so key. Like, when we at Sales Arbiter take people through, training, coaching, mentoring, I mean, it's really interesting, Darlene, because it's almost like, how do you not try to go into every engagement, like every sales engagement, and try to build, a bond and rapport in a way where you're making a connection with your prospect, and it sounds, I know this sounds crazy, but it sounds a lot more like a conversation than it does a sales call, right? Right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think over the years, I don't like to be sold to.
Mhm.
There's something in me when I feel like I'm being sold to,
Yeah.
even when I need that product or whatever it may be, I'm like, everything's screaming in me, like, do not buy, right? So I try to do the opposite when I'm connecting with people,
Yeah.
and not push them, use fair tactics. I'm not saying those things don't work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there making a lot of money from, pain points and fear and all of those types of things.
Sure.
That's just not what's authentic to me, and that's not how I wanna operate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so then when you're going into these events and you're really uncovering, I mean, I'm assuming you go through like a discovery, or you're doing something to really uncover, the reason why, or the compelling reason why your prospect needs or potentially needs your service, right? And so when you're going through that process, I mean, what are some of the things that you're doing, that may be different than other consultancies out there?
So I love that you use the word discovery because that's what I do. I go into a discovery call versus a sales call.
Mhm.
Really, the discovery is on, helping the client identify what they need. Most of the people I talk to don't even know what they need. They're not really sure. So really uncovering and
Yeah.
helping them discover what they need,
Right.
actively listening and sharing what I can bring to the table and how I can support them. So again, it's not really a sales call, it's a discovery call for both.
Right.
Um, and that is for the client to really understand what they need and what I can offer. And it also is, selfishly for me that I'm bringing in the right clients because I don't want to bring in people I can't serve well because my reputation is everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so now I'm telling you, we're kicking off this Monday the right way. Now the sparks are flying, because when you said active listening, oh, it was like a big juicy big the perfect omelet that I'm having for breakfast, and I just cut into it and I just took a big, bite of that, because wow, is active listening, it is so important. And a lot of times, even more seasoned, sales people, even more seasoned consultants, they feel this deep, compelling reason to fill that silence, you know?
Oh, the struggle is real. Listen, I'm not saying I am that. I struggle with that all the time, right? We're salespeople. We like to talk. I get excited and I'm really passionate about what I do. So I can tsunami somebody on a sales call if I'm not intentional and careful. And it's not from just trying to sway them, it's because I truly am excited. Or if I know I can really help somebody, that is even
Yeah,
harder, not to just assume and fill in all the blanks
right,
and let them talk and kind of share and make that discovery for themselves.
right, right. I mean, and how do you hold, I mean, I know, now you've given me the, kind of the visual of the tsunami coming in. Like, how do you hold that back? Like, what are the sandbags, that we use, like, to kind of hold some of that back, continuing with that analogy, how have you managed that for yourself? And then also, how does that, maybe a two-part question, how does that benefit, your prospect and your potential client as well?
So it's really difficult, but I try not to just assume what they need. When you're in business for so many years, it's
Mhm.
easy to just kind of they all blend, right? Like, oh, it's another sales call and this is what they do. So you can think, you just automatically assume this is what they need and all the different things. But
Mhm.
I do my homework, right? So if I'm meeting with anybody, I'm going to research them as much as possible. I'm going to try to understand where they're coming from, what their value is, everything like that, and maybe have in my mind what they need. But on the call, I will tell them I've done my homework and I've looked. I'd like to hear from you. What brings you to me today? Why are we having this call? And giving them the opportunity to be able to share that. Sometimes I deal with entrepreneurs, right? So it's
Right.
the iceberg thing. You're seeing, even if you look up every single social media or
Yeah,
website, you're seeing a tip of what their actual world is.
that's
So
right.
having that person share with you really helps ground your perspective of not just assuming what they need and really hearing, where they're coming from. Even if they look identical to five other clients,
Yeah,
their journey is unique and
yeah,
their needs are unique.
yeah. Now you work with sales individuals and salespeople as well, correct?
I have worked with salespeople. Right now, I'm a one-woman show, but I have worked with sales teams in the past for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And so how is some of maybe the tips that you can share with them, also, and those that are listening and watching, when you talk about like quieting that noise, because we've been conditioned in our lives to answer the question, right? And I think a lot of that comes from just the way that we were conditioned through grade school and high school. And we raise our hands, and then we get an attaboy, or an attagirl, and a piece of paper that has a good job and a smiley face and a little star, 100%. And then we take that home, and of course no one ever gets this wrong. Our parents put it on the refrigerator, right? And they tell us, hey, you keep answering the questions, and you're gonna be a good boy, and you're gonna be successful, right? And it's breaking that conditioning in a way that's just like, okay, I got to figure out where that question is coming from. Like,
Yeah.
I I gotta ask, why that's important to the prospect, and I have to actively listen. Is are those some of the things that you talk about, or that you some of the tools that you use as you're going through that discovery process?
Yes, but sales teams, that's a whole other can of worms, right? Because it starts with the sales leader.
Right.
You can have all of
Mm,
your different things. There's sales leaders that are so arrogant that they think my way is the only way and everybody has to sell this way and it's all about
mm,
the numbers and all of the all of the things that give salespeople a bad rap. But
right.
then have salespeople underneath them. And I'm speaking from experience. I've had this through my career where I may not have had the experience, but my natural instincts
Mm,
were still stronger than what this person was telling me.
right.
And it didn't seem right. But, I was pushing down what my gut was telling me about how to sell and thinking, okay, well, they're successful. It's easy to look at somebody and say, okay, they're successful, they're getting the numbers, but you don't see the whole picture, right? You don't want to churn and burn clients. You don't want to bring in the wrong clients. You don't want to just sell them only to have them leave
Mm,
or whatever. And it depends on the industry, right? Like
sure.
that's true too. But what I would say is for the sales leaders out there is even if you have to have standards, you want to pour into your people, but let them use their own spin on everything. So this way it's authentic to them, because there
Mhm.
is not a cookie cutter way to sell unless you're selling widgets and it's a script or whatever. There is not just one cookie cutter way to to sell. Put up the boundaries, put up the guardrails, and let your team operate within that that's unique to them.
Oh, it's so good. I hope that our listeners and viewers, I hope they're taking notes. I hope they're picking up these nuggets because you're right. You're right on it. I mean, I'm excited to continue to talk. So let's take a little shift and maybe talk a little bit about mindset and maybe some of your strategies or some of those shifts that we have. I did my homework on you as well, so I know that you have some I know that you have some things to share as it pertains to attitude and mindset and things of that nature and how that impacts the culture of an organization. Can we unpack that for a minute?
Yeah, and I would say with mind shift is I try to operate out of a generous mind shift. Like, I'm going to give value. I'm going to pour into this person. The end goal of my sales call is that I have built trust versus getting the sale. The win is in building the trust. The win is getting that foot in the door with the relationship. Now, if you get the sale right away, that's fantastic. If you get the sale 6 months from now, that's great too. Everybody, we have to make a living, right? But I think this, to me, the sweetest ones are when you have that nurturing over sometimes months or years, and then all of a sudden they're like, I'm ready now, because you built that trust. So shifting your mindset to be able to say, this call, I'm going to build the rapport. I'm going to really discover what they need. If I'm not the right person, I'm going to get them to that right person, and they are really going to love me regardless if they buy from me or not. Right.
Right, right, right. And so what are some common challenges that you run into, as far as areas of improvement for organizations that you serve? Like, there seem to be these kind of key elements that you're seeing, that are almost in every organization, that you've worked with or for. What are some of those things?
I think it's a matter of people losing confidence when they switch to a sales call,
Mhm.
and they can share what they do, they can convey the value, and then they switch over to a quote unquote sales call and they freeze up.
Mm.
They start being robotic, following, like I said, following a script. That's the worst thing you can do. Now, key points, you want to make sure, and again, depending on the industry, you want to make sure you have your key points of what you're hitting. But
Sure.
I always tell my clients, practice on your family, practice on your cat. It doesn't matter. The more you say it, the more natural it's going to be.
Yeah.
Not that, again, actively listening, know your audience, hear what they're saying to you, as opposed to just getting out your spiel.
Yeah.
You want to just spit it all out, right? You want to
Right.
make sure that you're interacting with that person. But the more that you have the more that you're able to convey your value
Mm.
and your key points and share how you can help, the easier it's going to be when you get on a call to be able to do that too. And again, changing the mind shift of, it's not a matter of, if they're not buying today, that I have failed. Where
Mhm.
do they go? Am I not the right solution? Am
Mhm.
I not the solution right now? Or, can
Mm.
I introduce them to somebody who's a better solution for what they need? You want to build your credibility, you want to build your reputation, and that just helps build your brand, because people know that you're going to be honest with them regardless if it serves you or not.
Right, right. And you're so right. Like, I think that one of the pieces that gets also overlooked is when you're out there and you're talking with organizations about the challenges that they're having, right? And you're trying to and and it comes from the right place. Like you really, like, I can tell already, that we became fast friends because you you were in that you're in the role of helper, and you want to go in and you want to uncover what the challenges are, what the issues, the problems, the frustrations are with the organization, and come up with solutions that will help them to get to their goal, right?
Mhm.
And when you do that, it sounds like to me, Darlene, that that sometimes can be, and I'll just use the word painful process, right? That can be a painful process. But as you're going through it, building those connections are so, I'm sure, and really having some tough dialogue is really important. And how do you manage those difficult conversations, like, when you're when you're talking with I mean, because a lot of the times you're talking with business owners, the CEO, the C-level leadership. How do you talk to them about, their baby? And I think it's that old saying, I can call my baby ugly, but you can't, kind of thing. You know,
Yeah. And
how
people,
do you manage that?
again, leading with empathy, right? People
Mhm.
build businesses, even if they're not doing everything right, they put their heart and soul into building that business. So you want to be respectful that you're not coming in and just saying, like, this is horrible or whatever that may be.
Right.
Um, but also, I can't do my job unless I'm honest, right?
Mhm.
Um, and really get into the root, because if I go into a company and just tell them all their sales processes and everything they're doing is great, um, it's not going to help them if I see something, but I'm operating out of fear and I don't want to
Right.
confront that. So, I like to do a SWOT analysis, right? Like,
Mhm.
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, all of that type of stuff across the board, because sales is not in just a vacuum. You
Right.
have to look at all the different aspects, and there's probably a lot of good. And what I say is the people that I work with have amazing value. They have it all going on. They just need a little bit more help to make it even better.
Mm.
Um, but then there's some clients that are a little bit stuck in their ways. And I always tell, my husband laughs because I always say, like, do I have permission to be honest here? And nobody's going to say no, but then they're
Right.
going to be like, it's like the punch and the hug all at once.
Right, right. The way.
And I use the analogy, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, like, if they're like, oh, I've gone through 15 salespeople and I can't find anybody who's good. And I'm like, it's like a girlfriend, right? One
Mhm.
or two, it might be them. After that, you got to start looking at yourself.
Oh
So
my goodness.
there's,
It's so
so
good.
a lot of balancing act.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. The punch and the hug, I love that analogy, because I think that's the way that I've raised my children too. So
Yeah, tough love. Yeah, tough love definitely works.
so many connections though, right? Between relationships, personal and professional. Like
Yeah.
so many connections that and analogies and probably experiences that you bring to your clients as it pertains to that.
Yes, yeah. Well, think about all the relationships. We have those surface friends that just say, like, you look great all the time, even at 7:30 in the morning with no filter, and all of those different things. But then you have the true friends that might kind of,
Mhm.
every once in a while, it might be a tough pill to swallow.
Right,
But
right.
then think about it and you're like, you know what? They're right, because
Yeah,
they know me so well and they have my best interest. They want me to be my best so they can speak the truth into my life,
yeah.
versus somebody who really doesn't have any skin in the game and they're just like, yeah, whatever you're doing, you're doing great, and just agree with you. And I always say, if you want a yes man, I am not your girl.
That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. That's great. So, we're coming through a pretty challenging year, right? For
Yes.
businesses. We're coming through it, and it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Some of my closest colleagues and friends have told me about layoffs they're having, about how, a lot of these companies are constricting, they're not, they're, they're, they're thinking about, okay, how are we going to get through the rest of this year and at least match the numbers from, last year, or, maybe there'll be some growth, but it'll be incremental. Um, what are three things that you think, Darlene, important, extremely important for businesses to focus on throughout the rest of this year so they can be successful?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost is like sales is a long game at times. And yes, we have to keep the doors open and all of those different things. But if you start operating at a scarcity mindset, your clients feel it. Your
Mm.
clients feel it. So you have to really back to that mind shift. When you get on those calls, do not go in like I have to make the sale, otherwise I won't meet quota or whatever. It comes, your energy comes across to that person,
Mm.
and it has the complete opposite effect on what you think it will. So really taking a minute and again, still operating the same that you have with pouring into somebody, offering that value, and seeing what, seeing whatever happens, but you will bring in more people that way than operating out of fear.
Mhm.
I will also say follow up, follow up, follow up, because people are
Mm.
scared right now. They say no out of an automatic reaction, right? And
Mhm.
they're like, no, I can't afford it now. And then a month goes by and they're like, oh crap, I'm still in the same boat. I need to make a change. But if you're not the one following up and being in front of them, they're going to go with a different solution.
That's right.
So making sure you follow up. But what I say is give value every time you touch that client. Don't just be like, hey, are you ready to buy from me now? Give them some sort of value
Mm.
when you touch them. That again, that's still relationship building, right?
Mhm.
You had
Mhm.
that honest call in the beginning. Every time you connect with them, you're going to give them value. You're going to be more familiar with them. You're going to be more trusted with them. So when they are ready,
Mhm.
they'll be able to move forward. I have seen this year where things come to a screeching halt, and then it's like everybody wakes up like, holy crap, I need it. Then they start again. And it's been like up and down, up and down. And like, I'm not saying it's easy.
Right.
It's not, right? Sales, you're just as good as the last sale you made,
That's exactly right.
So it kind of sucks at times, but just stay the course. Know the value that you're bringing. And then thirdly, I would just say like, and this is more for sales leaders out there with a team,
Mhm.
try like encourage your whole team. I see time and time again, those sales leaders, those sales managers, they're taking the bottom 30 and they're putting everything into the bottom 30, right?
Mhm.
You have your top producers that are just on autopilot. I'm not saying they need a lot, but a little encouragement goes a long way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really sucks because I've been there to be a top producer and someone's like, oh, well, she's always going to hit her numbers or she's always going to get, 30% more than goal. And
Mhm.
then the bottom ones, they're doing webinars, they're doing this, they're doing that. Like, they're pouring into them. And those people may never even come along.
Yeah.
And then you have the middle, that's like the middle child that is, they're kind of touched, but they're not. I would just say, like, your job as a sales manager is to encourage your whole team and to keep them all motivated, even if you don't need to motivate those top producers.
Yeah.
They need your support. And sales could be lonely, sales could be frustrated. And the worst thing is to put your heart and soul into it and get amazing results. And
Yeah.
then nobody acknowledge it because it's expected.
Yeah. You're so right. You're so right. And wow, those are three great concentration areas to help your organization really not just get through this year, but to exceed the goals and expectations. It's great stuff. So well, I just want to keep the conversation going if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Yep, Primo is on, and he says, "2 talented sales pros here." I'll say 1. She's sitting next to me. But thank you, Pete, for tuning in today. That means the world to us. When we're going through, this process, and I wanna focus a little bit on process now, as we've talked about, it's the building, the relationship from the beginning, being your authentic self, going through that discovery and listening and asking good questions. you know, what about we gotta talk about that little thing. We gotta talk about that little thing, Darlene. It's called, and I'll whisper it, right? The money, right? We
Yeah,
gotta talk about the money,
yeah,
and because it gets to the point to where, okay, we think we've got a good fit with a
mhm,
potential organization. We believe that we can help them with their challenge, their issue, their frustration, whatever that looks like in their world. We think we have some of the antidote for
yeah,
for their for their sickness. um and then we got to get to budget. Like, we got to talk about money, and that's normally a very, very tough conversation for some salespeople, and for some organizations, or for some leaders in the organizations that are selling their product and service, and acting in that role of sales. um,
yeah,
and and I think it goes back to that thing that we talked about earlier, which is conditioning, right?
mhm,
Um, we've been conditioned not to talk about money. Like, I
yeah,
remember, I think I was 8 or 10 years old, and I asked my parents, like, "How much money do you make?" Uh, how much money does the Smith family does the Smith family make? Like,
yeah,
we don't talk about that. Like, and
sure,
so we haven't really been, and I'll go back to saying it again, conditioned to have open and honest conversation about budget. you know?
yeah,
So what are some of the things that you do that, once you get to that point, assuming that everything else is going well,
yeah.
does that, if you're doing things right in the first place, does that make, the budget compartment, does that make it easier? I mean, or is it still hard? And what are some of the things that you do to overcome that?
So, typically I do not lead with budget or anything like that. And again, it depends. If I know somebody is really, they're not the right fit, they're not looking at, I want to be respectful of their time, and help them understand. And I always say, like, I can always go through this for the future, but I want to make sure I'm respectful of what you're coming to me for, because everybody is busy. But
Mhm,
I would say, like, once you convey that value, somebody's going to be a good fit and really be able to benefit from what you are selling, or your, service, or whatever it may be.
mhm,
I like to ask them, what does your decision making process and timeline look like?
mhm,
Did you have a budget for this?
mhm,
All of those different things. Again, back to questions, 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 because you may be speaking to somebody who's not the decision maker, or they'd go forward today, but now you got to talk to 20 people on the team
right,
to convince them.
right.
So I think it's back to understanding, understanding, understanding. And then if they're like, oh, I'm just not really sure, like, help me understand, is there more information that will help you make this decision? Is there a good time? Why don't you digest? Let me send you everything in writing, right?
Mhm,
I'm a verbal processor, but I also, if I talk to you, I want to see everything in writing. So I send everything in writing afterwards. Here's everything in writing to help you understand what I can offer. Once you digest it, let's have another call, because you may not have questions today, but when you look at that information, let's hop on a call if you have more questions or concerns, or whatever it may be.
mhm.
So really making sure that the person understands the value, what you can offer, and how you can help.
That's
And
great.
I tend to get really excited if I know you're a good fit for me. Like, I'm really excited about it, and I get the person excited. I like to paint a picture of what opposite of fear, right? Not
Yeah,
like, if you do not use me, your business is going to go down the tubes. No, if you use me, this is how I can help you. And
yeah.
paint that picture of what it's going to look like for your service to be able to support that business,
Hmm.
opens up their minds like, oh, there is a different way, right?
Hmm.
That really is appealing of how they can help. Again, back to authenticity. Don't lie about it if you can't, but really set that expectation of what it would look like to work with you. It
Yeah.
really brings people to that next level and helps them catch that excitement.
So good. It's so good. Well, thank you so much for that. And wow, I mean, we're just, we're dishing out a lot of good information today to our listeners and viewers. And this is the time that we typically kind of pivot to the Sales Arbiter 7.
Okay.
And we had talked about this at the beginning of the show, or before we came on, but this is kind of my tribute to James Lipton, inside the actor studio. And we just ask these 7 questions, and it lets our audience understand or a little bit more about you, and maybe personally as well as professionally. And so if you're game, I'd love to ask you a few of these questions and just see how it goes.
Sure.
Great, great. Well, the first one, pretty simple. What is your favorite word?
Love. I use the word love so much. Love, love, love. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
And somebody my assistant pointed that out to me, like, and
right.
she'll tease me because she hears my sales calls and stuff. So she's like, I love that. I love that. But it is like one of the words that I just use a lot.
It's not a bad word to use a lot. I love spreading the love, so that's good. That's good. What is your least favorite word?
Uh, Least favorite word. Okay. There's many. I would say, well, this is going to be like probably moist.
I love it. I love it.
Gross.
I've heard that before. I'm not sure I have heard it on the show, but I've heard it before. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people just despise that word for some reason or other. And
I
I
swear that's the only thing in my head right now.
I
But
kind of feel sorry. Like if you were like if you can picture like these little caricatures like of words. Like, I think moist is like one of those. It's like sad face and like hunched over, and it's like, why does everybody hate me? Like, kind of, that, like that's kind of the way I picture that word. I don't know why. It's just I just see it that way. But that's a great one. Thank you. What's something that could make your day?
making somebody happy or encouraging, I love to encourage people. So having somebody encouraged.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And what's something that could ruin your day?
Um, Probably anything to do with finances. I despise financial talks. I just shut down. And, if somebody is trying to, go through a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
that can destroy me.
Right. You gotta zone out. You're like, I think tomorrow's trash day. Like
Exactly.
you're, you're like,
My ADHD kicks in. I'm like, yes,
yeah.
talk about your spreadsheet all day long. I am somewhere else.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. All right. What's a sound or noise that you love?
Oh, a baby giggle.
It's the best, isn't it?
I could listen. I watch those TikToks and I can listen to that all day long.
I'm gonna use one of your words here, darling. I just love it. I just love it. I just love
Yes. Now you're gonna think of me every time you say love.
it. What is a sound or noise that you hate?
Probably the opposite, a baby crying. Like, if I'm in a
Yeah.
store, it's not that I hate it, like, I'm annoyed. I'm like, "Give me that baby. Let me rock 'em."
Yeah. Give me that baby. I can fix that baby.
Exactly.
That sounds like that's kind of in your nature, though. It's kind of in
Yes,
your nature. I can fix that baby. What's wrong with that baby?
exactly. Let
Uh,
go shop. Let me rock your baby.
exactly. That is so funny. That is so great. What profession other than your own would you have liked to attempt?
Um, probably, probably some kind of nonprofit,
Yeah.
at some point. I think I'm going to the end of my career, but I'm like, the world's a beautiful place. Reinvention is great, right?
Hmm.
So I think my next step would be something with a nonprofit or helping others, some kind of social reform or focus.
Oh, wow. That's big. Like that's not a little thing. Like that's some people say, "Oh, I would like to be an airplane pilot," or something like that. But
You don't you don't want me driving your airplane, no.
that's it's just not in your world.
HD, I'd be like, "Oh, pretty lights," and we'd be going down. So
Oh
yeah.
my goodness, that's funny. But that's a tall order. I'm interested in hearing more about that. Like, and because that's obviously something you're passionate about maybe looking at like a nonprofit in that way, or maybe as you're winding down, getting involved with something. Are there certain things that you do now, that
Yeah,
or involvement that you have now in the community?
so I think first I probably wouldn't like to I would probably like to be involved in a nonprofit and not have a nonprofit because there's a lot of that business stuff. I just want to help people. Like if I was going to do that, I would want to be on the front lines type of thing. And I love to
Mm,
feed people. So I've done food
yeah.
ministries before and different things like that. So I think that like because you're helping people in that moment and it's very satisfying and it's very gratifying to see someone be able to benefit from what you're doing in the moment. There's a lot of long-term um, charities out there and different things like that, but I think for me I would like to just feed people.
Yeah, that's great. That's just great. Well, let's tell the viewers, the listeners, how do they get in contact with you? What's the best way for them to, open up a conversation with you, Darlene? I mean, your sales experience, your knowledge is unprecedented in this area. So I really want to make sure that they can get to you easily.
Sure. So dpconsult-consults.com is my website, and you can fill out a form on there and we can have a discovery call or a conversation. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I am very active on LinkedIn. So just send me a message or a note, and I'm happy to even, just have a virtual coffee to see if you need my services. Or, like I said, I have an incredible network of amazing service providers. So if I'm not the right fit, I
Mm,
can pass you off to a great person.
so good. It's so good. It was a pleasure having you on. I hope you will come back and see me again. And when you write your next book on mind shift or whatever the name of that's going to be, I'd love to talk to you about launching that, even on my show. So just so happy that you're here today and that you're sharing all of that sales wisdom and experience with the audience and those that are watching as well.
Well, it has been so much fun, and I appreciate your time and you having me on the show. Amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I always close the show like this, Darlene. So keep selling and have fun doing it. Thank you so much. This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset. Going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening?